Alright, so this is part 2 of the little lecture series on netnography, and this little lecture here, I want to talk about positionality, and this is actually connected up to a bigger question of epistemology. Now, epistemology is how we know what we know and the claims that we make around knowledge. Now, it's important to say that netnography, like ethnography, is very squarely a qualitative approach to research, which is to say you can survey 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 TripAdvisor reports or Instagram posts, but that can only ever be representative of itself. What you don't have here is the representativeness from population to sample, which you might have in a quantitative approach such as survey research or experimental research. And you're not going for representativeness at all. The data that you can achieve through netnography can only ever be that little data set, and not everyone writes a TripAdvisor report, not everyone engages with Instagram. Lots of people have views that they never put out there in the world, which is to say that you can report on what's being said, but it's not valid to say 90% of people said this or that, because there could be lots and lots of other people who haven't said it, but who would say the opposite. They just haven't written an online review. So I think it's important from the outset to say that all you're doing is looking at the data that's there. This is a non-interventionist data source. You're not creating data. Now, Kozinets in his book, he talks about ways in which you can do a data generation online, where you can do an interventionist. For example, you might send out a questionnaire to people, they would send it back to you. That's not really what we're talking about here though. Netnography is an ethnography of data, of online stuff that already exists. So with this in mind, you're not creating data, and therefore you're not saying that this data is representative of anything other than itself. Which means that your engagement with the data will depend to a great extent on who you are and how you're coming at the data. And this is connected to epistemology. This is the question of positionality. Now, I'm a white, fat person who goes hiking. So when I read about fat people going hiking and women hiking alone, which I also do, I'm reading that from a very specific position where I know what that's like, but also I'm very much in favour of that being a thing. I think it's scandalously awful that I'm not represented when I look at outdoors media. Now, that view cannot help but permeate how I read those online postings around unlikely hikers. And this was the example I used. If you haven't heard the first part of this, listen to the first lecture, because I'm talking about that paper. But as I said there, I'll link it below. Now, it's important to say that whoever you are will affect how you read and interpret the data that you're finding. We can't help this. It's like having a pair of glasses that have got scratches on them. And it doesn't mean you should just give up and stop looking. It just means you need to know where the scratches are, so that you know what it is you're seeing hasn't got the scratches are you. Wherever we're positioned will necessarily affect how and what we see in the data, but it doesn't invalidate it. It means we need to accommodate that. We need to be explicit about what our positionality is and how that positionality affects the way we engage with the data. So this is part of epistemology. We know what we know in part because we filter it through who we are, and that filtering process, which we can engage with in terms of reflexivity. Now, these are the keywords to look up in this space: reflexivity and positionality. A good source on this is Wanda Pillow. Her surname is Pillow. She writes about how we can manage ourselves within qualitative research, and I think that's something that's very important to engage with as part of netnography, because all of us are coming at the internet from our own positionality. The other thing to say is, if you're looking at social media, we are all of us in a kind of echo chamber of social media. If you look at what you see on Facebook versus what I see on Facebook, I see things that are targeted to me and you see things that are targeted to you. So none of us can do a kind of objectivist study of what's on Facebook because of the way everything is targeted in that space. So it's really important when you're doing netnography to understand and engage with the fact that your positionality will filter what it is that you see, but also how you read what it is that you're engaging with there.